That's great that you had that humbling experience. It took me years to open up about like being open to my successes and my failures. I was always so worried about what people thought. Like that's why my second startup actually failed, because I like scaled. I had no product, no money, had massive office space, 30 people working for me, all this shit, everything wrong that you don't do. All you should care about is like sales and a great product at the beginning.
Yeah.
Once you got humbled, how did you get it together, like, and then go into air call?
Yeah, so I want to touch on what you just said first really quick, because I think it's really important. I think that a large part of the reason that so many startups fail is that nobody talks about the failures, and it paints this unrealistic image of what starting a company actually is. And people don't realize all of the shit that's actually going to go wrong. And I think people need to talk about that a lot more. You always, how many headlines you see a week in TechCrunch about a company raising their round, right? Nonstop, every day the alerts pop up. But how many do you see about the ones that are closing their doors? And it's happening to 95% of them. And you don't see a headline about that ever. You don't see someone posting on their LinkedIn that they just failed, that they just lost all their investors' money. You don't see that, and it happens.
They hide.
They go into hiding, and it's not a prideful moment, and that's a problem. It's painting this picture to American entrepreneurs, as Mark Cuban would say, that it's a lot easier than it is. And I learned that lesson the hard way. And TV shows like Shark Tank and all that stuff, that they make it look like, and I love that show, by the way, but it paints this picture that anyone can just go do this, and it's super simple, but it's really not. And I think that's a problem.
It sounds like you had to deal with a lot of internal selling. Like, what's your secret, your strategy? Like, how are you what's the one thing that empowered you to be so successful selling internally?
Here's my secret. Because I came prepared to have a conversation, and I was educated. See, a lot of salespeople, especially in big companies, make the mistake of coming and being upset when the deal doesn't go their way. They don't have the data behind it. They don't understand the financials. They don't understand the mechanics of what it's going to take. Meaning they can't say, boss, if you give me this pricing, I know I'm going to get the deal because I don't know what it is about me, but from just a pure like strategy perspective, I'm a huge strategist. And I know when I'm working in an account, when I'm working an opportunity, I know exactly who all the players are, who all my champions are, a plan to be able to make them my friends, a plan to be able to ask them questions. Like, there are a lot of people who wouldn't ask questions, who feel uncomfortable on those first calls. Like, who are you considering? Why are you considering them? Oh, interesting. And when you say it like that, when you find out it's a competitor, oh, interesting. The next clue from the person on the line is, why do you say interesting? Now you're questioning them without questioning them. They want to know why you're questioning them. And I knew my stuff, man. I knew everything about my competition. I knew where they were failing at. I tracked them. I watched them. I smelt every single piece of them to be able to understand what they were doing and what made us better or what made us worse. And what made us worse, I would bring up front right now. Here's what you're going to be challenged by when working with us. So if you bring these things up front, now you can minimize them. Now the competition is neutralized. They can't talk about how bad you are at something else because the buyers already know. And at the same time, if you are practicing personalization, you are building relationships with people and forming friendships. And that's what I did. And so in answer to your question, so you had to know your stuff. And I had a great call today with one of our sales folks. And I said, listen, when you're on the phone with a customer, you are the resident expert. Sound like it.
Tell me about the book, because I saw it on Amazon. Well, I picked up a copy because you already told me about it before it was released, and was really excited to be a part of it. But tell me about the premise of the book and give the audience a little bit about some tidbits. Of course, we want them to just buy it immediately, but give them some sneak peeks of it.
Yeah, so I'll lay out the framework of the book. I like to think of frameworks. Whenever I'm trying to figure out a big problem, whether it's an entrepreneurial problem or a selling problem, I like to kind of think through what's a framework that I can use to help me solve it, think through it. And that's really how I approach the writing of the book. There are so many great selling books out there. We just talked about a couple of them. So many great selling books out there on skills like prospecting, presenting, negotiating, closing. And what I wanted to do is write something that was a little bit different than that, but would complement those kinds of resources. And this kind of comes from my learning and development background. So as I was, working with my own prospects and clients, in doing my own research, etc., what I had started to see is that there were these kind of skills behind the skills that can make us better at our everyday selling activities. Different ways of thinking, different ways of strategizing that can help us be better at our everyday sales activities. So that was a little bit of the catalyst or that initial thought process behind the book. And then as I started to dig into it a little bit more and understanding of what are people really coming up against, not just sellers, but our prospects and our clients. And there's this kind of new sales economy that we are all...
You talk a lot about that.
Yeah, it's that we're all working in. And I like to think of it as this very fluid intersection of things like business dynamics, technology, cultural change, that are really it's changing how our prospects and our clients and customers, it's changing what they expect of us.
Wow.
And if we keep doing the same things, we are not going to be successful in helping our prospects and clients be successful, and we're ultimately not going to be successful as sellers.
Sometimes your only available transportation is a leap of faith. And people don't take leaps of faith.
Wow, that is good.
Right?
Leaps of faith.
Often enough. Sometimes when you do something, women especially, like I know that, Brandon,
Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about this, right? You're a huge advocate for women in sales. You're putting your money where your mouth is by sponsoring Girls Club. Good for you. But women, we allow ourselves so much self-doubt. It's ridiculous. Like there are stats that show if there's a job and a man wants to apply for it and he has 70% of the skills that they're looking for, he'll still apply. A woman won't apply till she has at least 100% of those skills. I mean, just take a leap of faith. You know what I mean? You can acquire those skills. So
I think I realized that from reading Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. Like I didn't realize the societal changes and norms on women in sales or women in general until my fiance Danielle and we read Lean In, because I'm like, hey, I'm not a woman. I'm trying to build an amazing company. I have to understand the 50% of the workforce that could help us maximize the we want to positively impact 1 billion people. We got to know how to work with, empower women. And when I read that book, that changed my life. Like it opened my eyes to how these micro societal bullshit, norms are put onto women. And kind of like disempower them to be like hold them back in a way, to not take the shot. I hate that.
Yeah.
Because I believe in anyone, every time, take the shot and fail and learn and optimize.
Taking the shot is the only thing you can do in your life. Take every shot you can. Like you're not going to make them all, but that's okay.
So what changed at General Foods that you did differently than the other places?
Well, I think there was a couple things. First of all, I began to listen to people. I really began to listen to people. And you begin to realize you got to start looking at the big picture. And the big picture is, what's the customer? What's the customer looking for? It's not what I have. It's what the customer is looking for. And how do you really sit there and listen and play the long game with the customer? Now, remember the type of sales I was in, these were very much account management relationship. We're developing 3-year plans, 5-year plans, long things. So it really, what it did during my 12 years there, it really developed my boardroom skills in terms of sitting with very, very senior level people. to sit there and negotiate these 10, 20, $30 million deals, contracts over multiple years and so forth. So really what happened was I grew up. I simply grew up. The early days of sales, it was just out there hucking and shucking, and you're just throwing stuff against the wall. And it's all about you trying to get enough money, trying to, make the commission today, to now playing the long game. And let's say, let's build a business.
Wow. So complete mind shift, acting shift, executional shift.
Complete mind shift. The mind shift went from a focus on the money to now a focus on really a concept that I talk about today. It's called legacy leadership. What will people be saying about you 20 years from now? What will people be saying about you 30 years from now? And how do you influence and impact people? You really think of what sales is. Sales is about influence and impact. And when we influence and impact people positively, it's amazing what we can accomplish. That was the transformation in me. And that just continued to grow. And it just continues to grow every year. That's why I am so passionate about sales today.